Happy Monday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Kevin Rankin to the show. Welcome to the Wolff Den.
Thanks, brother. How you doing?
I am doing great. Had a great weekend. Got some exciting things coming up. All good here.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite things, music. I actually had my 250th episode with my brother and sister, and we were talking about music and how it's outside of family, probably the most most passionate thing for me and thing I couldn't live without. I'm gonna guess that's probably the same for you.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of commonalities there for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
You're a little bit more involved in it. So, for those in the audience who don't know who you are, give them a quick intro and then let's get to it.
Well, I love that my friend Rita from Germany is tuning in right now. Good to see Rita. Yeah, Kevin Rankin, drummer for A Flock of Seagulls. Been doing that on my seventh year. And prior to that, I guess in that music realm, most people would know I was in Animotion, known for Obsession, was like their big hit. I was in that band for over 15 years and played with a lot of other amazing artists, Jennifer Batten from Michael Jackson's band and Jeff Beck, and uh, done a lot of subbing for Missing Persons and Tommy Two Tone and New Shoes and all sorts of stuff like that.
80s music.
It does seem like that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I play in a bunch of other sort of projects too, more modern things too. But once I got into the 80s thing, it seems like I made a lot of connections that way. And plus I think you and I are about similar to the same age. So we grew up in that time that was real formative and it meant everything to me. So it's kind of cool that I get to play with all the bands that, I was roller skating to when I was a teenager. So
Yeah, so I'm 46, just turned 46. So obviously grew up in the 80s. But I will tell you that I didn't really become a huge music fan until like maybe senior year in high school. I was saying I would listen to Z100 and Wild 95, WPLJ, I think it was in New Jersey, and I would record like the top 40. Remember how you had to like hit record and then hit stop and then hit so. And then when I got to college, just music became a big thing for me going out. It was everywhere you go and nightlife.
yeah.
So I kind of like the 80s were sort of, where I started, missed out on like the Led Zeppelins and the Pink Floyds. So that's not as big a part. And I love everything. My range is huge. We'll probably talk about that. How did music become a big part of your life?
Well, it was in the family. My dad he was a Dixieland jazz player, played clarinet and saxophone. And so I had it around a lot. He'd rehearse and I'd go watch his rehearsals. And he played some guitar and, sort of campfire guitar. I grew up in Montana, I should say. So there weren't a lot of opportunities for, musicians, but I have a uncle in Chicago who's an incredible jazz drummer. He played with a lot of the big guys. And so my dad introduced me to rehearsals and kind of the excitement about, playing for people. Then I went to visit my uncle. I saw this massive drum set and I was exposed to all sorts of great rock that I never would have heard from Montana early on, Van Halen. And I think I remember that weekend, the first Motley Crue video came out. I'd been playing clarinet for a couple years and I thought, wow, I saw this Motley Crue video and I saw Tommy Lee and I thought, that dude's not having a hard time picking up girls, And so I loved everything about drums at that point. That's all I wanted to do. So clarinet got tossed and bought myself some drums.
I played the bassoon and the trombone in high school or middle school.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone, and I use the word played loosely. I joined because I wanted a reason to get out of class.
Yeah.
Joke's on me. I had to sit through like a 3-hour graduation, not mine.
Yeah.
And try and fake playing whatever it was. I was never a good musician.
You say joke's on you, but at that point, you got to play in front of an audience. And so even if you had to sit through it, think about how many people were there at the graduation. And you can say, Matt, you got to play in front of how many thousands of people. So, it's It's a it's a perspective and how you look at it.
I agree. I agree with that. Again, I use the word played loosely because I don't even know if I knew what I was doing. I think the reed was broken on the bassoon at the time. It was like I was just. It was. I don't have. That's all I remember about it. I remember nothing else about that whole experience except I had a trombone. I brought it back home. The bassoon. Also, people would like, "What the hell is a bassoon?"
Oh, I love the sound of a
But
bassoon,
you
man.
don't need it. We need more bassoon in
Yeah,
music these days. I think.
totally. I actually love the sound of a bassoon. It's cool. It's got a good vibe. I bet you know what? Post Malone could bring a bassoon into his new music and probably make it pretty cool.
We'll talk to him. We'll tell him about that if he ever comes on the
Right.
Wolf. Did you like the music that you were hearing from your dad and your uncle?
I thought so then, and I knew that it moved me some way when I would play it with them. Because as soon as I started playing drums, it was a challenge, right? They were all playing jazz, so I was trying to
Yeah,
play jazz as a brand new musician. And if you're a musician, I mean, it's funny because jazz musicians get this rap for being pretentious because it's a complex form of music, and so they kind of look down on rock and roll. Rock moved me from day one. The very first time I heard stuff on the radio that was kind of a rock beat, it really stuck with me. So I appreciated jazz music. Now I totally, there are some, if you look at my playlist, it's all over the place, and there's some great jazz in there, some traditional stuff and some more modern, and I love a lot of it. But if you took 90% of my playlist, it's rock stuff. So
heavy on the drums.
not so much. I
No,
mean, I do love great drums in music, but for me, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, And so bands that are not so much known for their drummer, but they write great songs, hooks, those kinds of things are huge for me. Like early on, my favorite band from formative years was Scorpions, and they're not known for their drummer by any means. But I loved Klaus Mein's voice, and I loved how those songs made me feel as a pubescent teenager, and so that it doesn't really matter about drums. Most of my favorite bands are, it's more about the music.
this was it the Scorpions who did on the Nightmare on Elm Street soundtrack?
Now it's Dokken.
Dokken.
Yeah,
I love that.
we can go all through the hair bands, man. I got them all, man.
Well, speaking of hair, yeah, I love your hair. It's
Uh,
awesome. I used to have my hair spiked when I had more of it. It was growing. I never did it purple.
uh,
Do you get what would you say the reaction to your hair is? Is it more positive? And then people are going to give you looks and be like, I don't know if you have any tattoos either, but like when you're a rocker, yeah,
yeah.
that's not as much. Do you get a lot more looks than compliments? How does that? I'm sure you
It's
don't care. It's been so long; it doesn't even phase you anymore, or does it?
no, no. I mean, for me, part of it's the uniform, right? I play rock and roll. I play in a band. I've always done some kind of weird stuff with my hair, but both of my sons are redheads, and as they were growing up and becoming teenagers, they got teased for red hair, right? My older son especially was really sensitive to it, and I told him, just wait, man. When you get older, women love red hair, and so they're gonna want to put their hands through it, and you look on movies and TV now, like all the big stars are redheads. But I told him, it's really cool to be different. You probably can't tell on this camera, but I've got two different colored eyes. One split half blue, half brown, and so I joke that I'm part Australian Shepherd, but I got teased for that a lot, especially in Montana. Right, everything different was wrong, and I wore that as a badge of pride, and got in a lot of fights for sure. But back then, it was mullet and perm, long hair, and but I grew up in a cowboy town where there wasn't a lot of that. But when my kids started getting teased about the red hair, I said, man, embrace the difference. And so then I started going nuts and doing pink and purple and, blue and whatever. And I'm fortunate that I can get away with it. My day job on stage is expected to have something different, but I also have a web design company. And I think the support of being a creative type gets me a little bit more leverage. If I had a straight job, I mean, I worked in tech for a long time too, and
Yeah.
as long as I was working in design, I think I could get away with it. I don't think I've had a job that had a dress code necessarily for hair, thankfully, because I couldn't have dealt with it. And truthfully, I'm unemployable now, so it doesn't matter. But yeah.
Well, luckily you have a day job playing uh, for A Flock of Seagulls. You talked about Animotion. You started with them. How did you get to be a part of that band? We see all it's funny. You see, I watch a lot of music documentaries, and you see, how did it come to be? And a lot of times it's, hey, we grew up together. We were all buddies and playing. A lot of times it's just a chance meeting. What's your story?
Well, I mean, that's kind of how I got into the Flock gig, because we became friends because I was with Animotion and playing with these other bands. But with Animotion, I had been playing well, the last 28 years. I was living in Portland, Oregon. So I went from Montana to Oregon. I had this original band that had worked on a record deal. We were right on the cusp when I left, and the singer from Animotion had seen that band, I guess, previously. He had started another project in Portland, so he moved there, and I'd seen him play in his original project, but he called once. He was going to do a reunion gig for Animotion. They had all the original members back together, but they couldn't get the drummer together. And so he's looking around. He had a couple of my buddies' names, and one of my buddies from the Dan Reed Network referred him to me. And I took the call. I met with him like 2 hours later. He said, "Let's get together, have a drink, and we'll just talk." And I met with him, and we hit it off right away. There was no audition. There was no, qualifications. It was just whether or not we could get along together. And we did this one-off gig in Fresno, California, which is where their families were. They were being hired to do this one gig. And that band had really interesting story. The guitarist had been with Rod Stewart for almost, at that point, like over 20 years. And the keyboardist was on the Thriller record from Michael Jackson, and he was still with Jose Feliciano. So they all had, pretty respectable other jobs. And the guitarist who's with Rod said to Bill Wadhams, the singer, "Where did you find this drummer, man?" And he said, yeah, he's this hard rock guy from Portland. And he said, "We should do more of these. We shouldn't just leave this as a one-off. We should do more." And from that point, the band started booking a ton. And I think you and I met for the first time in Florida, right? We were all on tour, and Animotion was on that bill as well. We did a lot of those kind of package tours where they put bands together from the '80s, and it turned into something that went over a decade and a half. And thankfully, as I would sub with these other bands, the reputation was out there that I was easy to get along with, and I was reliable. And I think part of it, I'd say 90% of this gig is personalities, right? Being able to be around each other 24 hours a day. So the reputation led to some other connections. Flock, they unfortunately lost their drummer. Man, he was a great friend of mine, and they asked if I'd be into doing it, and I tried to do both, and it did not work to try and do both bands. But Animotion just happened to find that original drummer again. So now they've got him back, and we all tour together, and we're like family. And it's cool. It's all about relationships, as I'm sure you can understand. So
Yeah, I think there's so many talented, we'll say musicians, but certainly drummers, and certainly there's levels, right?
mhm.
Like the best of the best, and um, we'll talk about that. But it's got to be something else, because there's just there's so many people who can play and can come on and kind of figure out how to move along. It's not the same as trying to find a new singer or maybe a new lead guitar, but it has to work.
Yeah,
It has to work. Otherwise, the fans will know, right? I mean, the people who are listening, they're gonna know.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the levels. I had this guy who's become my friend, but he used to come out and watch me play. And musicians, sometimes they can get a little catty, right? So he's watching, he's got his arms crossed, and he's watching me play, and he's like, "Man, how'd you get this gig? Right? It's not like you're that good." And so, yeah, I'm not at the top tier drummer by any means, but I know where my limitations are, but I also know what I bring to a band. And for the style and the presentation for a lot of these bands, I feel like, man, I match up well. I'm really grateful to be able to bring what I do. um if I were to, this has happened. I mean, I've had to sit in with great progressive fusion bands, and in college those days I could pull that stuff off, boy, it's pretty evident that I have not practiced those chops in a long time, and so it's a humility. It's a humbling thing to sit in front of that crowd and try and pull one of those gigs off. But throw any '80s band out there, man, I could do it all.
Yeah, I think the versatility of it too. I happen to love cover bands.
Hmm.
I think to be able to play all that, such different types of music for me, I love hearing covers. I forget what show we're at, but I was in the lawn and someone's like, "Play your own music." I think it was Zach Brown who plays, sprinkles in like two or three great covers. For me, I love it, especially when you do a throwback like the '80s. Dave Matthews
Oh
bringing in
yeah,
Sledgehammer and just I love that stuff.
sure,
Um, Travis Barker, for my favorite drummer, considered one of the best.
totally.
It's real sad what happened with Taylor Hawkins. That's such an interesting story. The way Dave Grohl, I guess people didn't know this, that he was the drummer,
Yeah,
and then he becomes the singer. And there's so many singers on stage who go back and drum for a song. It's real talented. Obviously, they're not going to play the whole set,
right.
but to see musicians being able to play guitar and getting back on the drums and maybe play the piano. Did you ever play anything other than drums?
Well, you mentioned cover bands. I mean, I was in cover bands through high school and college, and every once in a while we'd mix it up, and I'd jump back on bass, and the singer would go on drums, and we'd all switch. I was never an accomplished real musician on anything other than drums. It didn't ever interest me, to be honest with you. It's nice to be able to strum a few chords on anything and pull that off.
Yeah.
I could make my way around a keyboard, but and I sing every once in a while. I'd get up and sing some. I'm a huge Prince fan, and so any band that's ever pulling off Prince, I'll try and jump up and sing a tune. But
What's your song?
well, this last 2 years, it seems like everybody was doing "Let's Go Crazy," But "Darling Nikki" was the one that I would go to if they could cut a little deep on the Purple Rain record, because then I get into the antics of Prince's presentation too. Oh, I got my
Prince
boy.
shirt, and the,
Yeah,
the hair is purple. I don't know if you can see it, but the hair is
oh
purple.
yeah. Everything's pretty much purple, man. I that was the toughest loss for me in all of music. That and I was a big Kiss fan growing up, but I was non-traditional. The original guys. Their drummer that replaced Peter Criss was my favorite drummer, Eric Carr, and I was 17 when he died, and I remember feeling so broken. When he passed away from brain cancer, just thinking, well, your heroes aren't supposed to die, right? And you know, many years later, man, when Prince passed, I respected everything about him. Not only was a multi instrumentalist and he wrote some amazing songs and albums, but what he stood for, I just felt like he could thumb his nose to corporate sort of ownership, and he paved a pretty damn good path. So it's funny. I'm getting texts from people that are watching your show right now too, and they're like, "Hey, Darling Nikki is my favorite too."
That's
Thank you,
awesome.
Carla. Yeah,
Deep,
it's
deep
like,
cuts. We're getting deep into. Never saw Prince. Someone asked me who I would love to see.
yeah,
Michael Jackson is probably number one for me. Who is it? I mentioned Neil Diamond and Paul Simon, although they're both still with us. They're done touring for health reasons, I
yeah,
believe. Who would it be for you that you never got to see? And it
man.
could be before you were born. It could be anyone.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I honestly, it would have been amazing to have seen Queen, Freddie Mercury and his glory. I think he's hands down one of the greatest singers ever to grace the rock and roll stage. And like I was a late bloomer for a lot of the stuff. Like Zeppelin, I loved Led Zeppelin. John Bonham, is the influential drummer for me. A lot of drummers kind of have this camp where they're either Neil Peart with Rush or they're John Bonham with Zeppelin, and I loved both. For Bonham, everything was this guttural, primitive sort of like there was nothing timid about anything he played. Everything he did was so um, it was right from his gut. He wasn't thinking about anything. And so to have seen Zeppelin would have been amazing that way too. So these are like classic rock bands for sure. But yeah, I think to have heard, because and I'm sure you know this too, but you see a lot of bands now and you go out their presentation, there is a lot of what they, what you see in the show. The show is such a big part of it that you really kind of don't get lost in their musicality.
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury didn't need the show to present that voice. And I think his voice was so pure that I'm sure his show live was the way that it was on record, So that would have been one I think that would have rocked my world. But Michael too, I never saw him. And playing with Jennifer Batten, I've got these incredible behind the scenes stories from her that I get goosebumps when she tells them to me.
Yeah, I bet a lot of good stories. So many things to go back. I haven't seen it, but I hear very, very good things about the Jason Bonham experience.
It's awesome. Yeah.
I have not seen it. I used to when you talk about like Freddie didn't need all that. I saw Kiss. I thought they were good. It was great to see them. That was my first time I just saw them. But music today is become this show,
Yeah.
and I like the show, but I like the music more.
Yeah.
And I think you could sometimes we get too caught up in the show. I say that because I saw like Pink, right, when all the people go up and Lady Gaga and they start dancing, so they're singing a little bit less. Adele cancels her show because her team or whatever. Just put Adele up with a piano and a chair. Nobody cares. Nobody
Yep.
needs anything else.
Yeah. And
That's
honestly,
it. That's all you need.
she could pull that off. And I will say this about Pink, because I've had this conversation with my singer from Flock. He talked about how he just doesn't see a lot of new artists being able to, they're not true musicians. Pink, to me, is, I think, the greatest modern performer. She is that Freddie Mercury, because that woman, when you see her dancing like that, she's upside down, she's being dipped into water. She's singing everything without a backing
Yeah.
track. It's amazing to me. My buddy had been playing drums with her for like the last, I don't know, 10, 12 years. And Mark Schulman, I'd go to these shows and I'd sit down with him afterwards and I said, okay, man, I mean, I've got to ask, right? Everything was so perfect on that show. How much of that stuff do we hear off of a computer, right? Where are the backing tracks? Because the background harmonies and the supplemental instrumentation, the keyboards and the strings, and her vocals never waver. And he said, nothing. He said there's a click track, there's a metronome, so that we all hear it in our ear because it has to sync up to all the visual stuff back behind it. And you do get caught up in a lot of the visual stuff that's there, and she presents all that. But that's one person that you could sit her down with a guitar, an acoustic guitar, and there's tons of video out there, right, on YouTube of her doing that too. But so I wasn't trying to be, I wasn't trying to contradict what you're saying, but she's one of those people that, yeah, she could. And I think when she charges whatever she does for tickets, I'm sure that she probably wants to bring a show that people feel like they got what they paid
Yeah.
for. I
But
mean, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, people are okay with it. Why? Like I watch put on Saturday Night Live. It's called Saturday Night Live.
Right.
They're bringing a musical act, and it's like
Yeah.
it's crazy how people and we think back to like Ashley Simpson and
Oh,
Milli Vanilli who got, I mean they got railroaded for it.
yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, that's one thing that we really pride ourselves on with A Flock of Seagulls too. It might not sound exactly like the record, right? I mean, it's tough to sing those notes. And Mike just turned 70 2 days ago, right? And when the one thing about instruments, your voice as an instrument, that's something that you can't just continue to, work that muscle and have the muscle memory. Your voice goes out, I mean, over time. Some people are blessed with being able to keep that voice and sing at the same range. Like Mickey Thomas is one from Starship that he floors me. He can sing everything in the original key. He hasn't lost a step. But
I saw Mickey Dolenz on the Beach Boys cruise, and he killed it.
oh, good.
Otis from the Temptations, 80 years old, up on stage dancing and singing.
Yeah, I mean but I would say it's a small percentage of guys that can keep that voice, even at an older age. But the we do everything we play is live. We don't have a laptop going back there, and there are a couple things. I'll hit a pad to start this little loop going, where it's just like a bass line, that kind of thing, and we play over the top of that. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's everything you hear is us live, warts and all. And to me, I feel like, all right, I mean, it's what I would want to hear in a band, and it feels authentic, right? So, I promise when people come see our show that I'm going to give 100%, no matter what. I don't care how small the crowd is, and I just want the experience for them to be what I want from a show. I'm
Yeah.
a huge music fan too. I go to see music music all the time.
Yeah, I can tell, and that's what's so great about when someone wants they want the audience to feel. Um, Counting Crows, I
Oh
love
yeah.
him, but he what the heck's I just forgot his name.
Yeah, and I forget it too.
Anyway, he changes. He does his own spin on the songs now, and he does it a lot more now.
On his stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't like it. And I think
Right.
you hear a lot of people who say that. Um, it's just I want to come and hear the song sort of the way, not if we're older and it's not going to sound exactly the same, but because we like to sing along to it.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
like I go to Hebrew services, high holidays, and I go to a new one, and they sing a whole different tune, and I'm like, well, I don't really enjoy this because I can't sing along. I don't know it.
Sure. Well, yeah, people do want to hear what they know. That's why they go to see an off-Broadway show. They want to go see, like the Book of Mormon, and they want to hear, those songs. They're written because they're brilliant songs, and they want to hear them the way that was, done. I mean, Mozart, Beethoven. That you go to see a symphony, and you don't want to hear somebody's interpretation of Mozart.
Yeah.
You want to hear their performance of it, and
There is a place for it. There is a place for hearing someone's interpretation of it, but it's not. It's
yeah.
not. That's in my eyes.
if
Um,
if you saw Zach Brown go out and do a Zeppelin song, you want to hear Zach do it the way Zach would do it. But if you saw Zeppelin come out and do it like the way Post Malone would do it, you'd be pissed. So yeah.
although we did have. Uh, now I'm drawn. Man, my brain is not working today. We had a guest who went viral for singing like a country Ice Ice Baby.
Mm.
He was on. Man, my brain is not working today.
We just played
Adam
with
Duritz. Adam Duritz is the Counting Crows
Counting
guy.
Crows. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's great. I love Counting Crows. I got him all over my playlist. Speaking of in concerts, I want your take on this.
Sure.
The three most egregious instances of what I'm about to talk about. Number three was Sublime not singing What I Got. Number two was Styx not singing Mr. Roboto, and number one was Starship, which you mentioned, not singing We Built This City, which, by the way, I kept telling my friend, I'm not leaving until they sing We Built This City, and there's no way they're not going to play We Built This City, and they didn't do it. Now, some of it, there's some contractual stuff, like they can't sing it. I heard actually Styx, which I missed their last tour, actually started singing it again.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
what's
That
your take on that, and have you been to a show like that where that sticks out in your mind, like, how do they not sing that song?
Yeah, we did one. Yeah, I mean that's I think the Dennis DeYoung thing was the Sticks the license
Yeah,
or the agreement with there.
but they're singing it now.
They are. Yeah, Starship I'm surprised about. If you saw it with Mickey Thomas, they do it all the time and I wish they wouldn't because it's my least favorite song on the planet. But I love them. They're all my friends in the band. So I understand what
I like that song, and it gets on on the list of some of the worst songs in the history. And I go through that list, and I'm like, I like a lot of these songs.
Well, of course. You know what? It's like, I mean, music is subjective, right? So when somebody says this is the best band, I have a hard time with lists, man. I really do,
Yeah,
because who's to say that one band is better than another one? I detest the Chili Peppers. I get roasted for that all the time, man. It's Anthony Kiedis' voice. Can't stand it. I love that band. I love that band. The rhythm section is amazing. Cannot stand his voice. And when Chili Peppers come on, boom, I turn it. So
yeah,
to answer your question, yeah, the most egregious, man, for us, we did this thing at Disney World, right? So Epcot Center has this concert series. It's super
yeah.
cool. They have three.
My wife loves it. I saw Billy Ocean there.
Yeah, you know what? And you were there with some similar friends of mine too, man. Eileen and Frankie are at every single concert series there. They used to work for Disney, and they're at every show. They post these shows, and they were at Billy. And they said that he blew their mind. That not only was he a great performer, but he got out and he was approachable from the crowd's standpoint. He went out to pictures. We did that set 3 different nights. You do 2 shows a day, 3 nights, and they want you to. Well, I think they told our singer, or maybe he understood that they wanted us to mix up the set. And so we did the first set, one of the nights, without Iran. And I like if somebody comes out to see A Flock of Seagulls and they don't hear Iran, they're going to be throwing stuff. I get it, man. I mean, there's no way you.
It
And
is it's a smaller set though, but still, yeah,
yeah, I mean, like it's a half-hour set, right? You get 6 songs.
that's enough.
And if I really feel like if we don't do Space Age Love Song, Wishing, and Iran, it's a disservice to people because they pay good money for these, their tickets. They want to hear those songs.
Yeah.
I love playing Space Age. If we ever have to do a show without Space Age, I get bummed out. Sometimes, if you're playing long, like say you're playing at a festival and a few artists open the set and they go long, right? And so we're headlining the set. And what we had was 70 minutes in a set that got trimmed down to 45, that got trimmed down to 30. Um, it's important to be able to sort of work backward and figure out, okay, how much time do we have left in the set so that we can do Space Age and Iran and Wishing. Sometimes it just doesn't work that way. You'll be out there in the middle of Space Age and they're like, hey, cut it,
Yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah.
power. And it's a drag because number one, it's not that just that we want to play the songs, but people are there, they want to hear it. And like you're waiting through a bunch of maybe Starship songs that you don't know because you're like, but I know they're gonna do, knee deep in the hoopla,
I feel like they didn't sing "Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now" either that time. It was like I was devastated. I told my friend I would have bet every penny I had that we
Yeah.
were going to hear that song.
Don't you know what? As a guy who's really into sports and betting and that kind of thing too, don't you feel like you regret so many times that you've said, "I'm going to bet everything I have"?
Yeah,
Like, my sons and I, we struggle with that one about sports and politics and all that good stuff. So
yeah.
yeah,
I want to go back to something that you talked about. I said documentaries. I love these music documentaries. I watched Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
oh, yeah,
I thought it was very good. I'm a huge fan. I think, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. I think if I could put someone in the Hall of Fame, and they just had the Hall of Fame induction,
yeah.
that to me he's the one that's not in that needs to be in the Hall of Fame. It was kind of like a private parts, not as good. I think it could have been done a little bit better, but it was definitely entertaining if you like Weird Al.
I
What
would.
documentaries have you seen that you have really enjoyed? The Queen one was great. There's just been so many good ones.
Yeah. Well,
Elton John.
I've heard. I mean, for the Weird Al show, like I agree with you. Most people just think of him doing a couple of those, parodies, but he's a gifted musician, man. That guy can play so many instruments, and and I know that I've been long winded on some of your questions, but I know that one of my best friends plays with Alice Cooper. He's on drums. He's done that gig for like long over a decade. Every year, Shep Gordon, who's Alice Cooper's manager, has this end of the year party for New Year's, and he brings in all of his favorite musicians. Weird Al, Steven Tyler, I think Joe Perry, those are and Michael McDonald, those are the consistent ones. They're the ones that are staples that every year they're performing with all these other people, Sammy Hagar to Sarah McLachlan, everybody in between. Paul Simon even came and did it. But Weird Al is always one of the guys because he's so gifted musically and he's an entertainer. He's a brilliant guy. I haven't seen that documentary, but I want to because I agree with you. I think he doesn't get the recognition he deserves for his talent.
I just saw him. Whenever he comes to town, I see him. I've seen him a few times, and it's funny because he said, "If you didn't do your research, you're going to be disappointed that we're not playing all of our hits. We're playing all like these, some originals. It's still a great show."
Sure.
I was disappointed, obviously, because there's songs I wanted to hear. I need to get more polkas. I love his polkas, just the
Yeah.
medleys, and I love Bare Naked Ladies does great medley. I wish they were bands that come out and do these medleys at the end of the show. I
Yeah.
love it.
God.
How do you feel about it?
Man, you know what? You just touched on something. I was not a huge Bare Naked Ladies fan. We did some gigs with them, or I did with Animotion, the very first gig in Toronto. One of the biggest supporters of me and my band, Melinda Hall, passed away this week. She was everywhere in North America that we would play. She went to every show. The only band that she loved more was Bare Naked Ladies. She struggled with cancer for the last 6 years, man, and she brought this shirt that said F cancer, and it was signed by every artist she'd seen, hundreds of different signatures. And she was not one of those people that was just desperate to get a picture with somebody. She wanted to experience their whole energy. And we just played a show with her a month ago in Chicago. She was there, and then the week after, Bare Naked Ladies brought her up on stage with
That's
that
awesome.
shirt. And so yeah, we lost her last week, man. And I think when I think of Bare Naked Ladies, I think um, how much particular artists can touch somebody enough to change everything about their life. It's not like they're obsessive fans. It's that the way that bands or music makes people feel has, it's carved something different in their life. And so I'm sad about her loss, but I'm so grateful, number one, that we got to spend so much time together, but number two, that that band had the fortitude, or had like the foresight to bring her up and make her part of the show. So kudos to Bare Naked Ladies. And I didn't answer your question about documentaries. Like for me, I eat them up too. I used to get into Where Are They Now on VH1. I loved the Behind the Music. Behind the Musics to me were really fun. A lot of times the Where Are They Nows or the Behind the Musics always ended the same way, right? The band that you loved so much had all the political differences amongst the members, and then somebody got drugged up or drunk and ruined the career of the band, which almost was the story with A Flock of Seagulls. There were drug issues early on, and there was some mental health issues that caused the demise of the original members. And they had a Bands Reunited episode on VH1 with A Flock of Seagulls. I loved watching that long before I ever joined this band, because it's cool to see the dynamic, especially if you know that it's real, right? If it's not like,
Yeah, you need to. That's the thing for me, is how real is it? Because they're entertainers, and it's the same.
yeah,
You meet. I meet tons of artists all the time, and I can tell the difference between someone who is genuinely interested,
yeah,
in talking to you, and someone who's just there because they have to be there. There was a band I had a VIP meet and greet, and I can just tell it's I won't say the band, but every second it comes on, I just turn their music off.
yeah. Isn't that sad that it ruins it for you? They talk about not meeting your heroes.
And they were my heroes, but I
So
agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, you know, one thing that I try to balance is um, this relationship that I develop with strangers. People that come to a show. It's when they've paid for a ticket and they come out and they actually want to express how they feel about the music or about the show. They kind of cross into a different phase for me, and I struggle with it a little bit because my boundaries aren't really there. So
I was going to ask that because you're so personable and likable and want to ingrain yourself in the fans, but it's just that becomes overwhelming. So how do you balance that?
the overwhelming thing is key. I remember our singer telling me, you need to learn to remain aloof. And I'm like, good luck. That's never going to happen. Like I've never been that guy. I love people. I really do. And like them, I love the experience of the show.
Yeah, music fans. I mean, who doesn't want to talk to someone else who loves music?
God, man. I mean, what you'll find is that, on those music festivals where we're playing with 6, 7, 8 bands, I'm a friend and a fan of 90% of the bands we ever play with. So when I'm done playing, if we're on early or we're headlining, I'm out front with my fans of that band, watching right up front. I mean, I'll sometimes watch on the side of the stage, but I want the experience that they get. And so um, I get what my singer was talking about, and I see other friends of mine who are really good about figuring out a way that they don't seem like they're unapproachable, but they also have a balance. I get
Okay,
exhausted.
but sorry, but
Yeah.
the thing about that is also, and I can see from his point of view is, hey, Kev is so friendly. This guy is not. When that doesn't have to be the case, it's just he's
Yeah.
not to the level that they're not to the level that you are. Other people.
Oh, well, yeah, yeah. I mean, like some people, because they know that they've been able to talk to me. It's unfortunate, but there are some people out there that I've met at a show that all of a sudden the level of entitlement goes up a lot higher, right? And some of this stuff really it's hurtful. I met a guy in Denver whose kid was on the edge of the stage or edge of the aisle, and he had a Flock of Seagulls shirt on. We're playing at Fiddler's Green, 22,000 people, great, huge, outdoor amphitheater show. And I'm like, how does this kid know a Flock of Seagulls, right? The kid's like 11, 12 years old. I asked his dad, and he said, "Oh yeah, man, I raised him right, and he wants to play drums." And I said, "Oh, you know what? I'll see if I can." Oh, and he asked me for a drumstick. I said, "I'll see if I can meet you guys afterwards because at that show, if we finish, we're headlining. I can come right up to the edge of the stage. I'll toss him a stick." And usually I try to do that. If there are kids there, man, I want to make sure that they get something to take away. And so, unfortunately, we finished the show. Security pushed those guys out. The guy tracked me down on social media, got really upset that I didn't get him a drumstick. And I'm like, man, I tried. I actually came to the edge of the stage. Everybody's gone. And then he got mad at me and said, "This is my address. You know, you can send us that stuff and maybe send me something else, you know, that would be a nice souvenir to make up for it." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't know that I necessarily had something to make up for." But then my life got crazy. There was stuff in my life, personal life, that was tough, and I was struggling with some, you know, balance. So it made it to Thanksgiving, right? So we played in July or August, gets to Thanksgiving, and he's
This
like,
is Stan. This is Eminem's Stan.
the guy then sends me the message, "You're an asshole. You know, screw you, man. And like, here's my address. It's a tough year, man. You know, we don't have a lot of money for Christmas. So if you could throw me four or 500 bucks so that I could get something cool for my kid." And I'm like, "Dude, I I'm sorry that I came off that way. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm not an asshole, probably too nice,
Yeah,
but I sent the drumsticks, and I also sent a note saying to the kid, I'm sorry that your expectations weren't met. I also am sorry that your dad may have built this up to be more than it was, you know,
yeah.
and so that's a pretty extreme level, but I don't want to change getting to meet people and to know
No,
people. You know, it's not fair sometimes. Like we just did, I was in Cancun for this 80s, this thing called the Sands. It used to be called 80s in the Sand.
great lineup, by the way. I thought you weren't playing there, were you?
I just play with like the
Right,
band.
but
They put together like all-star bands
yeah,
and
yeah.
cover bands. But yeah, no, we played the first year. I was with Animotion, New Shoes, and A Flock of Seagulls. And then I go back every year now because it's the greatest thing that they've ever put together. Where you've got a killer resort at Planet Hollywood where there's so much to do. It's massive. Everything is included. And then you've got so much good music. Everything from Culture Club to the Cult. You know, the time to, you know, Belinda Carlisle, Loverboy, like every year there's some hard rock stuff. They've had, you know, Billy Idol and Winger and Sebastian Bach, and then they've had tons and tons of, you know, like all the 80s bands you could think of. They're all there.
Did they change up the lineup? And I go to a lot of these. I see a lot of this same bands, and it's
Uh,
like I believe I'll see the same band over and over again. But I also there's others that I would want to see.
Yeah, they change it every year. Sometimes there's an overlap. Living Color came back a second year in a row because they were so good last year that they had to bring them back. And like the 80s crews, a lot of times they'll mix it up a lot, but you know, Berlin had been a consistent every single
Yeah,
year. With us, with the Lost 80s Live thing, you know, for 4 years in a row, we were headlining. I loved that for me, but I wouldn't want that as a fan. I get that you want to see a different headliner every year.
unless it's your festival or your project.
Well, yeah, I mean, so it's not,
Yeah,
right? I mean, if it was my project, even then, I don't think I would want to do like if it was my festival. Well, okay, yeah. So if it's Depeche Mode and you're putting together the Depeche Mode cruise or the Kiss cruise or whatever, of course Kiss is going to be there every year because yeah,
yeah.
that's your thing. But yeah, it's so cool to see something different, and that's the cool thing. The Sands, this wasn't meant to be like a you know a promotion for them, but every year they try to make sure that the experience is better, and they do tons of meet and greets. And then they've got artists, you know, because it had been primarily 80s centric, they would get all these actors, you know, from the movies, right? So they had like this year they brought in Corey Feldman. That wasn't probably the
Corey
best.
Feldman's
That
he's
was
a trip, man. He's a trip.
yeah, that was not the best option for them. But they had Diane Franklin and you know, from Better Off Dead and Last American Virgin. They have Amanda Wyss from Nightmare on Elm Street and Better Off Dead. Um, they bring in, you know, like Curtis Armstrong, you know, Booger, you know, from Better Off
Love
Dead.
Booker.
Like, yeah, Booger was there
Great
for the
movie.
first. So they bring in these actors to do meet and greets, but you also see them everywhere, hanging on the beach. You see them by the pool, or you see them you know, playing music. You had asked about some of the artists that will get back, like a singer that will get back behind the drums. I saw a video last night, Carrie Underwood doing that at her show, and that was cool. It's making all the viral rounds today because it's unique. Downtown Julie Brown, one of my favorite people on the planet, man. And for me, I grew up in the MTV era, right? So all the MTV VJs, they're there. Mark Goodman, Alan Hunter, Downtown Julie Brown. Eddie Trunk is, you know, I think you probably know Trunk. He's up in your hood. You know, Eddie comes and he kind of brings on a lot of the hard rock guys. But the MTV PJs, they're there as personalities. They bring in on a lot of the artists. But the first year, I gave Downtown Julie Brown her first drum lesson out on the beach. And her husband looked at me and he said, "Man, you've cursed me because she is hooked." And so now she's drumming. We drum, we get little lessons in every time I see her. She got up with the band this year. She played Turn Up the Radio from Autograph. She played Back in Black, and
Wow.
she's killing it, man. And that girl, she's already vibrant and delightful, but people are still talking about it. Everybody talks about downtown Julie Brown getting up to play drums, as did Flava Flav. Flava Flav just showed
Wow.
up. He wasn't scheduled to be there. He showed up because he liked some of the other artists, and he just showed up and he did like a tribute to Coolio. He got up and played drums, and we hung backstage and talked, and yeah, that kind of stuff is super super cool. I
I,
know that.
met, I ran into Coolio at a conference in January.
Yeah,
So many just artists that are, people in general, but famous
yeah.
musicians. He was great. I loved Coolio. I thought his
Did
stuff
you?
was nice. Saw him play an impromptu show. It was his birthday in Vegas, and at I don't even remember where. Just got up and played some hits.
Yeah. Did you talk to him at all?
I did. I went up to him. I gave him my card, and I said, "Hey, I know you do these '90s shows. Like, we could do something pretty cool
Yeah.
for you." And I think he used the word "dope." I use
Yeah.
the word "dope." These are dope.
Yeah, man, you're getting some street cred right there.
Yeah, but never got a chance to follow up with him.
That's too bad.
How is MTV still a thing?
Is it?
I mean, it's a channel. I don't know. It's on my.
I've
I
never
think I
seen.
could watch it if I wanted to.
Yeah, I haven't seen MTV in a decade, probably. Yeah, but I mean, but I will tell you, if it weren't for MTV,
No,
I
no,
I would not be playing drums. I don't
yeah,
think. I really, like I said, I saw Too Young to Fall in Love, and I thought I need to be Tommy Lee. Obviously, there are many reasons why I'm not Tommy Lee, but yeah, man, they were brilliant in the way that they brought that to the world. It was awesome, and
I got
even the VJs too, right?
I got my Jarrett Reddick Bowling for Soup. Like, I
Nice.
don't get a lot of these. I gave away my Matt Nathanson one when I was on the Rock Boat to a good friend of mine who loves Matty Nay more than I do. But I don't. I have a lot more like tickets, and that's what I keep. I don't. I never had a drumstick. Never
Oh,
got lucky to get a drumstick. I have some friends who caught some cool ones. Um, the uh, the bands. You're someone who played in these bands. You joined another band. Uh, Fair to say after their hits come
yeah,
out. Right?
yeah.
Give me a band you'd love to go join today. Not
Muse.
'80s. A band. Name a band that
Muse.
be awesome.
Muse is the one. Yeah,
Muse.
yeah. Matt Bellamy, if you're watching this, I know that you guys have been together since kids, man. But yeah, that I could walk on right now. I know your catalog, and yeah, that's a band that does have one of the most unbelievable presentations in their show. But musically, Matt Bellamy is a freaking genius. The guy's an incredible singer, incredible keyboardist, incredible guitarist. Yeah, that's the one. Muse.
It's interesting. Like I know a lot about music, but I also there's so many people that are great that I don't know about, and people like me who love music, but just we know that they know the headline people and the drummers who are in the news and the guitarists. It's a handful of people, but the type of talent that's out there that just never gets recognized. Are they generally okay with that? I mean, most people are okay with that. I can sing, but I think I'm going to want to play the guitar with this band because I might. It's a better life for me as a musician.
Let me make sure I understand the question. Are they all right with um,
Not being like
the
having
spotlight?
the fame that
Yeah.
they say others have.
Well, I mean, it works for some guys. Like your guy Travis Barker, right? He likes to be the personality that's way up front, and I love it too. The guy is an entertainer, but he's an incredible drummer, man.
Yeah,
That guy, a lot of jazz guys would pan him because they thought that he was this punk rock guy that didn't have chops. But I've seen him play Latin, I've seen him play jazz stuff, and he was a marching band guy. So a lot of the guys that play in drum corps and marching band, they have rudiments that they've practiced 16 hours a day, right? And they've basically gotten to, that they talk about the 10,000 hour concept, right? Do you become a master at anything with 10,000 hours? That guy has gotten his 10,000 hours and then some, so he deserves all the recognition for being a drummer, but he's also a killer entertainer. He's really involved in modern pop culture stuff too. So I think,
collaborates great now. I mean,
yeah,
I used to stuff
yeah,
with Avril Lavigne and
yep, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that I could see wanting to be kind of like that too, mostly for the collaboration idea, because there are a lot of artists that I love. I talked about Pink. Man, it'd be fun to do, some kind of collaboration with her, or even hard rock guys. Man, I'm a metal guy at heart too, right? So like Pantera was my favorite metal band, and it'd be, fun. They talk about these tributes to the unfortunate demise of the drummer and the guitarist in that band. I would never want to try and stand in their shoes, but it'd be fun.
No,
But it'd be amazing to go
but
out.
people want it to live on. They do. They want it to live on. It's like
I get
look at John Mayer and the Dead, and look at
right.
Adam Lambert and Queen. I mean, they are great.
Yeah, for sure.
Both
Yeah.
of them.
I mean, Adam Lambert, of course, got his American Idol, recognition. The guy Mark Martel that's out there that does his Queen. They used him for Bohemian Rhapsody, for that movie. I've seen him do his tribute to Queen, and it's like watching Freddie. Still it's uncanny to me how he's got his inflections, he's got the facial movements, and it's almost like watching the greatest Broadway performance of a Queen show when he does his thing. Um, I will say from my personal perspective, people that want the stuff to live on. Uh, Obviously, I'm not one of the original lads from Liverpool with A Flock of Seagulls, right? The band's from Liverpool, the four guys that started that band many, many years ago. There are these Facebook groups called they're fans of the original Flock of Seagulls. And I joined, when I joined the band, because I was a fan of the original guys. I love those songs. And it's not just because I'm in the band, but I love how that music made me feel when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. And but then I started noticing the guitarist that was in the band at that time. He confront them on social media, and we've all seen guys that get so wrapped up in confrontations on social media that don't go anywhere. Right? It's never
No, there's no
productive.
winning any of it.
There's no winning anything. There's no conversation. It's just like this is what I think, and this is why you're wrong. So that was happening, and then that group, that community, started getting really anti Flock of Seagulls of today, right? Because they were thinking, all right, well, how dare they go out it's claiming to be a Flock of Seagulls, and they're assholes because they fight with us. I was never going to be that guy. I was never going to argue how legitimate A Flock of Seagulls is now compared to 1983. There's no way. I mean, that's
Oh,
so.
but you are a flock of seagulls. You
Yeah.
know.
Well, I mean, sure, and my score is the every representation of that, and that's great, and I'm proud of it, and I'm excited about it. Most of those people in that group are from Liverpool, and they were like, how dare like this metal drummer who thinks that he can replace Ali? No, I don't feel like I've replaced him, but I'm grateful to be in the band, and I love playing those songs, and I love the way those songs make people feel. So I told them in that group, I said, we're playing the Cavern Club where the Beatles broke, but also Liverpool where you guys are all based. Come out to the show that we're going to play. If the show lets you guys down, if you feel like you didn't get your money's worth, I'll give your money back. And a whole bunch of them came after the show. They were trying to buy me drinks, and they're like, "Man, that took some balls." First of all, and number two, yeah, it is completely different. It's a different sounding band than it was on record, but it was a great show, and it was so nice to hear the songs again, especially in this intimate little cavern club where the Beatles broke, and it was like this up front where they could see that everything was live. And so then
We
now,
have friends in Liverpool. They flew over for my wedding. I met them in Key West on vacation. I'll ask them.
yeah, ask them if they came to the show. Man, a lot of those people, I sat down with them that night, and it disarmed them. Right, all of a sudden they became my advocate instead of my adversary. And so I'm a huge proponent in that. Have a conversation with people, especially if there's some
But you
device.
got to bet on yourself. You got
Yeah,
to bet on yourself, and you got to be who you are.
and
You're not trying to be. Right?
that's
I mean, these guys who are replacing legends, they're not trying to be them.
right. When you talked about the Led Zeppelin experience that Jason Bonham has, it's remarkable because they do go out and the Page character goes out there and he really gives this presentation. You feel like you close your eyes, you can hear the tonality, you see him bring out the violin bow. You hear Jason channeling his dad's parts. You hear the guy that's Robert Plant really emulating that. They want to hear that because that's the Led Zeppelin experience. This isn't a Flock of Seagulls experience. You're going to hear those songs and you're going to hear them primarily the way they were, on the record. We're not doing some reinterpretation of them, but I, when you said you got to be yourself and you've got to, be essentially authentic, I promise, man, that anybody comes out to one of our shows, and this is not my sales pitch. I've been like this since the first day I stepped on drums on stage. You know, you're going to get 100% from me, regardless, man. I don't care how I feel. If my back went out in Europe and I missed 2 shows, but then I was up just propped up with my back against the wall so that I could actually still make it because I want to play. I want to play drums. I am not about sitting home and if I had had all those royalties and I was collecting that dough, thank God Mike Score doesn't want to do that. Thank God he wants to go out there and bring these songs to people because it's the coolest gig, man.
Yeah. You like metal and being yourself. Did you see the movie Metal Lords on Netflix?
I did yeah,
Great movie.
it was
Love that
awesome.
movie.
Yeah, my buddy, I talked about my friend from Alice Cooper, Glenn Sobel. He actually trained the actor on how to play drums for it to make it look authentic. I thought he did such a good job, man.
That was great.
That guy had never played drums before, and when you watch the movie, you think this kid is actually, where did they get him? So yeah, that was great. It was fun.
Yeah, great story, good music. I love anything that has good music and a good story. I'll watch those movies all day long. Give me we don't I gravitate towards men. When you ask me who are my favorite artists,
Yeah.
especially in country music, which is I'm a big fan of, but give me some female drummers out there that people maybe don't know about.
Jeez, man. Charisse Osei is this gal who plays now. She's with Simple Minds. She's been with Simple Minds for quite a while. 80s thing. She was with Cyndi Lauper just until the last couple years. But you watch that girl play drums, and you're thinking, okay, there's. I talked about how much I love Bonham because there's nothing timid about his playing. He comes out with such conviction that you feel like he's a snowplow coming through this road of just grating, stuff. That's how she plays drums. She's got a huge smile on her face. She's got a fan blowing her huge afro back, and the songs are just much better because of the way she plays drums. So she's one by far that is amazing. Cindy Blackmon, who played with she's played with everybody, Lenny Kravitz and Prince and Santana. There are so many. This girl Anika Miles right now, I think or Anika Niles. I think she's Danish. Can play anything: metal, rock, jazz, funk, fusion. Thank goodness for YouTube, right? Because you can discover all these people that you might not have known about if it weren't for this international channel to be able to bring artists that way. But right now, I think Charisse is probably my favorite drummer to watch because people have said this about my drumming that it's unfortunate. I'm smiling all the time. It's not inauthentic. I love to play, right? So,
Yeah.
but I've been in metal bands where I'm not going to name the name of the band, but I was in a band that had a record deal with Columbia, but the singer's mom was their manager, and she used to come and see these shows.
Whoa.
That was it. That wasn't the band.
That was not it. No.
No, this band, but the singer's mom said, "Why are you smiling?" I said, "Because I love playing." And she said, "Metal bands don't have people smiling on stage." And I said,
That's all right.
"Metal bands also don't have moms that are their managers, but
Yeah.
I'm doing what I do, and I love seeing somebody have a good time, and that's how Charisse is when you see
I
her.
smile all the time when I'm dancing to music. Is like people look at you like you're a maniac. Like,
Yeah, well,
one eye is what makes me happy.
shame on you for having a good life and be happy, man.
You know Nandy Bushell, the
Yes.
drummer. That's a great story, right?
So good, man. Good on Dave for recognizing it and making her. Dave Grohl. I mean, if people don't know, and he's talking about this gal that had really developed a cool YouTube following, and then she was drumming these Foo Fighter songs, and
He's
Dave.
really good.
She's really good,
Yeah.
and not only is she a great player, but she's got so much personality, smiling ear to ear, and. Yeah, so not only did she get like a shout out from Dave, but she challenged Dave to a drum off, and so he brought her on stage, and he brings her out with Foo Fighters. Yeah,
They
yeah,
had to do it. They had a drum
yeah,
off online. It's just
yeah,
you see a lot of people like Billy Joe brought a kid up on. He had a sign say I can play the guitar. Brings him up. He's killing it and gave
yeah.
him the guitar. You see a lot of that going on. It's
I
just
love it.
great to see. I love seeing that. You have a festival. You're curating a festival. It's 3 days. Who are your headline? 3 headliners. Could be any. Doesn't have to be any type.
Oh, really? So I can cross genre and everything,
Yes, you can cross.
and it has to be
cross
modern bands or just
oh,
historically.
as long as they're playing, they got to be able to play because we're going to do it next year.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, but I mean, like, not I can't put together the Beatles, right? Because
Right.
um, well, I
And
will.
you're as a fan, you're going to be in the front row for this, so you're doing
Yeah.
it as a fan.
Well, there'll be a tricky one because I feel like the greatest living singer on the planet is Miles Kennedy, who sings for Alter Bridge, he sings for Slash, and he's got his own solo career. He fronted my favorite band ever, the Mayfield Four, this tiny little band out of Spokane, Washington, had their record deal, and it just didn't go where it should have gone. Thankfully, he's getting the recognition he deserves, and so I'd have to find a way to combine Miles in those projects. Um, there was a time actually where they talked about putting Zeppelin together, and he met with Jason Bonham and Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones over in England, and it was not necessarily going to be called Led Zeppelin, but if you could put that band together with Miles fronting that project, that's the one. Um, so we'll call it, Led Miles Kennedy's Led Zeppelin experience, okay? But with all the original members except for uh, John Bonham and Robert Plant. So that would have to be one. You know, like I said, I like a lot of different kind of music. I think Pink puts on such an incredible show, and so you could not have her as an opener for anything. She'd have to headline her show, and the production in it would be pretty remarkable. I want people to have a great show. When I talked about Muse, Muse has put together one of the most amazing stage shows that the only reason it doesn't overshadow their playing is because their singer is just such a phenomenal multi instrumentalist and singer, and so um, if I put Muse, Pink, and the Miles Kennedy Led Zeppelin experience together, that's an odd mix. But I don't know that anybody else would have picked that. So I feel pretty good about having something different.
What would you feel when we talked about documentaries? If you were part of the Fire Festival or Woodstock '99 or to the 2015,
Yeah.
uh, what what would have happened? What would your feeling be?
I would have spent the last 23 years apologizing and
Yeah,
trying to make it right. I mean, obviously, Fire Festival wasn't that long. I'm watching the Woodstock '99.
wild, right?
It made me sick,
Yeah,
for all sorts of reasons. I talked to Downtown Julie Brown about it, and some of the other people that were there, right? Bands, guys in Everclear are pals of mine. They were there, but they didn't know all that stuff was going on back behind the scenes. They're like backstage. We didn't know that, the amount of horrible tragedy was happening. I watched that. I binge watched it on a flight. It might have been international flight, and I remember freaking out the people on the plane because I'm like, "Can I swear here?"
I think so.
Okay, I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. When I watch the two guys that organized it, the one guy from Woodstock who passed away from cancer at the
Yeah,
end, and this dude in the corporate high rise and downtown New York City who was saying, look, okay, it's a small city of 250,000. We're gonna have rapes. And I'm like, what
yeah,
the fuck? Oh
yeah.
my
I
God.
know.
Did he say that out loud? And then people,
Yeah,
kids next to me are like, why is he swearing? Yeah, I got so
a
incensed.
tough watch.
It was tough, man. And who knows? Well, we know, right? That stuff happened. It's not like they made this for Hollywood, but uh, so I would never have done it. I know music promoters. I know that it's a shady business, bro. I mean, there are some guys that do it right. There are some guys that cut corners. There are a lot of people out there that are only doing it for the money, and that's obvious. Like Fire Festival and Woodstock '99, it was all about the corporate money. It was the money grab.
There's a
And
lot of people being rewarded for bad behavior.
yeah, and I have this conversation with people a lot because maybe it's naivete. I
Some of it, but some of it you can't.
no no. I mean,
It's their. Oh,
my naivete to think that
yeah,
I think at people's core that people are inherently good. A lot of people disagree with me. My oldest son really is. He's told me, Dad, most people out there are bad, and I'm thinking,
yeah. Luke Bryan. I saw Luke Bryan on Friday, and he has a song. Most people are good, and I might be closer to your son. I don't know. I think they have the ability to, but I just don't know.
well, I mean, if you look
Bad.
if you look at what's going on in the news, you look at what's going on, in in, like people's political structures or economic structures. I just moved from Portland, right? So Portland has been way in the news for all sorts of stuff, man. The riots and like unrest and everything. And it makes me sad because that city was my home, man. I loved it so much. And I saw how much was manipulated, right, from media. Doesn't matter what side of media, you look at. But one thing that I do when I'm traveling, and I thank goodness, man, dude, I love to travel. I love to meet people. And I like to sit down with somebody. I don't care if they're homeless on the street or if there's somebody that I'm sitting next to on a plane. I want to know their story. I want to know what they represent. I want to know what moves them. And I feel like people that I meet fundamentally have similar values and that they want their kids to be healthy and happy. They want the community that they're in to thrive. They don't necessarily feel a genuine hatred for somebody of different color or different sexual orientation or how they voted. Really, like,
How do you navigate if you're on tour or in a festival around people that you can obviously tell aren't that way? Because there certainly are bands out there, and
yeah, yeah.
stay
I
away.
I caught myself judging, at first. Man, my first thing was to like, idiot, and then, but I will say that my heroes, like, you'll laugh, man, but my hero, modern day hero, is Mr. Rogers, man. That dude could figure out a way to find unconditional appreciation and kindness for anybody.
I
Doesn't
watched
matter.
both documentaries. I don't. I was sitting there being like, "There's no way this could be true. There's no way there's a human being like this, and you'll never find dirt on this guy." And again, I bet every penny I have on it.
Yeah, okay, and there's one where I won't disagree with you. I
Yeah.
bet you're right that there are a handful of people in history, right, that have been like that. And so I've joked about how ultimately in my life, man, I'd like to be able to get to that point, right, where I can appreciate everybody for who they are. And inherently, we're sort of patterned to have judgment about people or, to be selfish. And so when I see selfless people like that, a few years ago, I was in Thailand and I had this former monk take me to these temples behind the scenes where I could see these kids in the monasteries learning that methodology, that mentality, where no matter who somebody was, they would find love and kindness for those people without an agenda, without an ulterior motive, right? If you hold the Everest, as Gandhi and Mother Teresa, I'm never going to get to Everest in my lifetime. It's just not going to happen. If I hold Mr. Rogers at a base camp level towards on that trajectory, that's what I'm aiming for, because I want to be able to, if you find that in other people and you respect them and you can have a conversation with somebody that has a different opinion, listen to them and figure out where that's coming from. Is it because they were raised that way and their parents told them that that race is bad? Instead of just throwing up a wall and saying, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah, but you could be raised a certain way. That was in the fifth, in the fifth. Now we're here. The average person knows right from wrong and sees. So I think sometimes they use that as an excuse for behavior.
Well, sure. I mean, when I was outside of Portland, Portland is notoriously left leaning, progressive, liberal. Where I was at in just a suburb, my kids went to high school. Every day they come home, they're like, "I cannot believe how many Confederate flags are on my buddies' trucks," and I'm like, they don't know. They don't know what that represents, man. I mean, they really don't. I think I have to believe that these kids, they do it because they think of the rebellion. They
Oh,
think of
they
their,
see a rock star, Kid
yeah,
Rock with a
dude,
Confederate flag, and
totally. But and so I would try, but then look at me trying to defend that guy's behavior that I don't know, right? I don't know that
yeah,
person. But what I did tell them was like, you know what? Oh, I didn't have to tell one of them. One of my sons, he is that Mr. Rogers. And I'm not being that dad that says, "Oh, my kid could do no wrong." Something happened with my kid that inspires me. From 10 years old, man, he's never taken a birthday gift. He's wanted everybody to donate money to a pug rescue
ah, I love
or
it. You guys had pugs? If I get a dog, I'm getting a pug.
this is my boy right here, man. This is Edgar Allan Pug with his purple. Let's see, where's his purple mohawk right there?
There you go. It's awesome.
Yeah, I had to leave him in Oregon with my kids for a little while because I just moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. One thing about this area is that I've been here a month. You know what I've not seen? I've not seen a flag of any kind. I've not seen a bumper sticker. I could not tell you how one person in this town votes. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I talk to people all the time that they hold the door for me. They wave when they drive by. It's uncanny to me. But I mean, I grew up in Montana, and there was some of that. And it doesn't matter how somebody votes. It matters what kind of person they are. Decency is so key for me. So that's what I told my kids, man. If you be the change you want to see, and you treat people with respect and decency and dignity, no matter who they are, and thankfully, I got remarkable sons, man. Knock on wood, that doesn't change, But
And part of it is you. It has to be. But then they get old enough to where, and they have thoughts of their own, and they have to either say, I want to continue this, or maybe I want to even go a step further.
yeah, man, I can't take credit for the good stuff that my boys are doing. I can't. I mean, I made stupid choices.
No, but I still think you can tell some of it. I mean, that's
Yeah,
obvious. You listen back to the conversation, you can tell. But again, they're old enough to make their own
yeah,
decisions, and
yeah,
they have to either want to continue it or be better or not, and
yeah.
that's their decisions.
That's true. Yeah, you're
You
right.
make good decisions.
You sound like a dad.
No, I actually don't. I don't have any
No
kids.
kids, but you've seen enough to
Yeah,
know.
I've seen
Yeah,
enough
I,
to know. The I know we gone long here. We didn't even talk about All Access Live, which is your show, which makes sense because you love talking to people and getting the stories, and you get some great guests, well-known musicians. Uh, how did it start, and what's your favorite part about it? Obviously, talking to and
yeah.
getting
I mean,
stories.
there have been moments, some of my shows that have left me like huge, profound changes in me, in beautiful experiences. My show started because we had a break from touring, and I was doing some Facebook Live conversations with my bandmates, and we joked like, "Man, this pandemic could go 2 or 3 months. What are we going to do without gigs?" Not having any idea that we're approaching 3 years now, right? I mentioned Jennifer Batten earlier. She sent me a note and she said, "You're really good at this. You can get out of people what is interesting and intriguing. You should consider a podcast." And I'm like, "Everybody's got a podcast, man. What do I have to say that's any different?" But I said,
It's the
it,
guest. And
well,
just what you said, it's what the conversation you can have is what I try and do. We got 250 episodes to be like, if someone sees you on another show,
yeah,
it's going to be a completely different,
totally.
not a canned
Yeah,
interview. I saw you do the circuit, and
yeah,
everyone knows that's you have the answers, and there's no
yeah.
room to like go to three other things, which we've done.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I want real conversation. The conversation you and I are having is what I would have backstage with you if you were hanging backstage, which is how my show really evolved. Jennifer Batten and I did one early on, and she gave these great stories about playing and touring with Michael Jackson, so people wanted to hear it. But most of them started with musicians. Most of my conversations, and I mean, I just did my 251st episodes. We're exactly on the same,
That's
same sort of
awesome.
trajectory. But yeah, May, like 2 years ago, I started doing this show where I knew that some of the experiences I had talking to people backstage left me feeling so much more appreciation and respect for those people that you would never find out about if you just saw a TMZ article or some article that was written about their past. And so as I evolved, as it changed, and I thought about the people that I've had in my lives, I just reach out and say, "Look, I don't want to do an interview. Let's have a conversation. Maybe we can promote something that you have going on. That's cool." But like Tawny Katane, I did Tawny's last episode before she passed. The conversation I had with her was beautiful. We got past that level of where we talked about the stuff that she's supposed to talk about, and she talked more about how important it was to have this relationship with her daughters that had kind of been estranged from past relationships, and the connection with her father and how important that is, and going through difficult breakups and all that stuff. And so she passed away shortly after that, and I felt like and we developed a friendship after that too. We did a lot of conversations and sharing some meetings and stuff like that. And where when she passed, I had this sense of sadness, but I also felt grateful, that I
To have
didn't.
that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get the story from TMZ. I got the story, the real Tawny, the real Julie Katane, But
Yeah.
I love it, man. I mean, I've had so many like episodes that I don't want to ask questions that people expect. Dolly Parton's sister was Stella Parton was incredible. We talked about her family, but never once asked her about Dolly. And afterwards, she said, I've done 10,000 episodes or interviews. I've never done an interview where somebody didn't ask me about my sister. And I said,
Yeah.
well,
I
I think
probably would say something at the end just because, but I would have that. Like that's you have them on for them.
yeah, that's
That's
it. I
why
mean,
you have them on. And it's
everybody,
like
we
I
both
had
have.
a couple guests where halfway through it, I'm like, "Man, this is tough. They're not opening up a little
Yeah,
bit. Not like you have to pour out like I promised myself I wouldn't do this, but and then you saw the episode like evolve into this really good conversation, which is what it's supposed to be. Not you can't just dive into that stuff right at the
sure.
beginning, you
Yeah.
know.
And I think, you know what, like yours too, man. This is funny that I used to have people tell me, man, if you really want to monetize this, if you want to make this a commercial thing, you got to notch it down to like 15 minutes. And I'm like, how do you do that? You're talking about somebody's, like formative years and their how impactful the loss of their father was. Oh, hey, sorry, gotta go. Quota's up. That's just never going to be my thing.
That's reminds me of Private Parts with Howard Stern is like blah blah blah, but and his father died. By the way, the time is 1:42 and it's 87 degrees outside.
Right.
Like
Right.
we can monetize this. We will. We have 250 episodes, and when we have the time and the resources, we can get clips to share. That
Yeah.
could be a 10-minute clip. It could be a minute clip, and have a table of contents to say like, if I don't want to hear, I don't give a shit what Kev said about this, but I do. You know what's interesting? That story he told about Tawny Katane. That's interesting to me, and
Yeah.
I'm going to hear it at 1 hour and 12 minutes. But I don't do it for that. I do it because I love it's
Yeah.
good content. It's able to help someone who people don't know about, and if you do know about them, you're going to hear stuff that you've never heard before. I don't care
Totally.
how famous you are. I have people in my network who've never heard of you.
Yeah, of
Never.
course. Oh, yeah, most people I would imagine for sure. And then, but tell them to come
Well,
out to a
not
show.
you in general,
Well,
but
no, but you know what? I mean, yeah, dude, like the drummer from A Flock of Seagulls. It's not like you've got Bono on, right? I get that, and I think one thing you'll find, and you know this because you talk to enough people, man, is that everybody, it doesn't matter who they are, if it is that person on the street, they've got history, they've got a story, they have a family that left some profound change in them, and it's great to be able to relate to those people. That's the one
because you
thing.
can relate. Like
Yeah,
I can't relate to. We had some famous people on, like a Justin Guarini. The average person can't relate to someone like Justin Guarini.
but
Even they can't relate to someone like you who's touring the world. You're with a band that basically anyone who likes music knows Iran,
But you know
and
what they can relate to is some kid from a small town in Montana who had a really difficult time sort of maneuvering through being different
yeah,
and wanting something more, and then being able to go out and do what they could to make a difference in their planet, make their life better. Everybody has that kind of story, right? No, I mean, everybody wants their kids to be better off than they were. Everybody wants their life to maybe be better than it was when they were younger. There are tons of commonalities, and I, I mean, I don't get into much, about it because of the anonymity part, but I work recovery program. I got sober a little over 10 years ago, and
nice.
and I hit meetings all over the world, man, just because I don't feel compelled to want to drink. But the community there is so honest. You walk into a room and you listen to 30 different people and their story, you can relate to a few of those people who are like, oh yeah, I didn't grow up with that history, but I know how that particular thing feels. And if that dude can get through that by doing this, yeah, there's hope, right?
Yeah,
So
I champion for mental health. I've had some mental health issues late in life, just
yeah,
recently, and I always say like my story was very like muted compared to the stories that I hear. A guy that were like a minute away from that's the end of it.
yeah.
When you sit in the meetings, where are you on that hierarchy of like this is like documentary type stuff? And I had a big problem. It was paralyzing for me, but when I hear these stories, it's like, geez,
Oh man, well, mental health late in life for me too, right? I mean, just over 2 years ago, I was ready to end it all, man. I was went to the hospital. I did a 6 month dialectical behavior therapy program where I totally turned my life around. On my show,
you were sober.
I was sober physically. emotionally. I mean, there's a big thing about that. People talk about emotional sobriety.
No,
You know,
yeah.
I let my thoughts and my actions really get askew. 'Cause life was really challenging. I had stuff going on with my kids, my dad, and an ex-girlfriend, and business. The pandemic came and it took away all the things that I felt like fulfilled me. Right, I wasn't out there being able to have this expression with music, and then I started doing my podcast, and the hard parts, looking at people's loss of identity, it started to weigh on me, and I took a tiny percentage of each of these like sort of difficulties, and I saw that it took a toll on my mental health. And so I had a breakdown, man. I wanted to die.
What
And
saved your life?
well, I went to my doctor. He said, huh, great that you came here, but we're sending you to the hospital where you're going to go into like a 5-day inpatient, real intensive program.
But just going to the doctor is a huge thing. I mean, I waited a long time before I went to see anyone, and I was lucky because all my thing was not eating and staying in bed all day.
I did stay in bed all day, and I did eat because I am an emotional eater,
I
right?
am too, but I literally couldn't eat. I mean, I couldn't eat.
Sure.
Not a good way to lose the weight you need to,
No,
but
for sure. But the physical the paralysis that happened with you, I totally get it, man. The life in you're out of your mind, right? The things that you would normally do to make decisions in your life are no longer possible because it's debilitating. And I was there. The only reason I went to the doctor was because one of my best friends said, "I'm coming to pick you up, and we're gonna go in because I'm worried about you." And I'm grateful that I even took that guy's call.
lucky.
I Yeah, totally, man. And you know what? Well, I will tell you, for me, I ate a bottle of pills. I was out of my mind, and it was late at night, and I woke up throwing up everywhere. Thank God I heard my kids in the other room, 3 o'clock in the morning, playing video games, and they had their headsets, and they were both laughing in their individual rooms. And I was so sick, thinking, if they'd come in and found me. This is after I've talked to so many people about doing recovery, both emotional health and drug addiction and alcoholism. But I was out of my mind. I mean, I have no other way to describe it, that I let everything cave in. This pendulum swung where super positive, optimistic Kevin just couldn't do it anymore. And then when I heard my kids and I realized how much it would devastate them, then I called my buddy. My buddy brought me into the doctor. Doctor said, nope, you're going to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 5 days. They introduced me to dialectical behavior therapy, which was just essentially stuff that anybody should know. I mean, they focus on emotion regulation, distress tolerance, mindfulness, interpersonal communication. I
We
felt
had
like,
a guy, sorry, we had a guy on his name is Ryan Nurse. He's called the Fool Around the World. You can watch the episode. It's an incredible episode. Gratitude. That's how this guy got out of gratitude. That's it. No pills, no
no,
gratitude.
that's a big one.
Crazy.
I got this gratitude journal right over there. That's my three
Yeah,
minute 3 minute gratitude journal in the morning.
I
And
like it.
all you have to do, I mean, if you're able to keep, because that's perspective, right? Perspective is gratitude. I mean, we all have things that, it's one way to look at it. Things could be worse, but if you also realize, man, I'm so grateful for, if you're grateful for this, things that you want to focus on for the day, and then something you're going to let go of. That's my little journal for the day. 3 minutes in and out, boom, gone. I learned some of that when I was in the hospital, and that idea of learning about distress tolerance and mindfulness, and really gratitude goes along with all that. When you're mindful and you're grateful for being present, I realized over the last couple of years that so much was taking a toll on my mental health. Trying and this is self driven. I was trying to be a hero for people, trying to fix things that there's no way it was my responsibility or possible to do. And friends of mine that were struggling with addiction, or friends of mine that were on the street and homeless. So I started a homeless outreach to try and fix the homeless problem in Portland. That was impossible. I could help, I could make some kind of difference or raise awareness, but Portland, even the environment was different for me. I looked at the incredible explosion of drug addiction. You like, it's
No,
really,
there's too many problems out there. It's so tough to get like the homeless, the drugs,
yeah, yeah, crime.
how do you do it? Like if I think about it, if you win the Powerball, it's like $2 billion. like, what would you do to try and do good in the world? It'd be hard to figure out, where do I start?
Yeah,
And you
well,
want to try and spread it. Is that going to be enough if you
I,
did it over?
just throwing money at it certainly doesn't do it at all, and I don't have those answers. But what I was going to mention is that what I recognized in all of it was that the places I needed to focus on were right here, right?
I
So
take care. I say you got to take care of number one.
yeah, yeah, and put your oxygen mask on before you can help anybody else out. So the things that I recognized that I could do differently. Number one, I could introduce people to ideas right on the show. I mean, there are some people. I have a little toggle, on my show that if we talk mental health, I drop up. There's a quick phone number for SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health, uh, basically crisis line.
This stuff.
And
Yeah, I got to update it, but this is what we had for the.
yeah, and right now, I mean, you can do I think 611 right now for people to
I
just
think
call.
it's R988, isn't it?
Uh, I'm not sure, but I do know
Yeah.
the we're getting into this mode right now. This is the holiday season. It's hard for people. So many families struggled, with there you go, 988. Being able to deal with their families have different opinions about politics or their feelings about COVID or whatever else, and it ruined families, it ruined relationships, and then it's always been hard. Thanksgiving is hard, even though it's a great time for some families. It's really difficult for a lot of people, as is Christmas and New Year's. I mean, this whole phase of this time where there's pressure, and realizing that there are places like this crisis line right there where you can actually call and get somebody that will listen without an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
They're not going to try and
And
force
those are
feed.
the you maybe you feel this way. Those are the people who kind of help the most, probably,
Yeah,
than someone who has stuff invested in it. It's tough.
yeah,
It's tough for them as a person to receive that, and it's tough for them to give that. I want to ask you, Gary Goldman, a great comedian, had a mental health. He had a movie. Um, I was listening to his bit. I listen to comedy all the time. He goes, "You know what the toughest part about life is? It's just every day.
yeah,
It's
right.
every day. It never. It's life is every day." So my question, I guess, to you would be, what is it about life that challenges you the most? Like, what is it that you had that your struggles, but today, as we sit, like, what is it that you would struggle with the most, that you have to consciously make an effort, to, I don't want to say combat, but to deal with?
Yeah, well, I mean, I looked at the things, without getting into any, because I'm not a religious guy at all, but I think the spirituality part of it, there was that serenity prayer, right? So grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change,
Yeah,
the courage to change the things that I can, and then the wisdom to know the difference. It doesn't matter what you believe in, but if you think about that mentality, the things that I could do in my life were to change my environment. So in Portland, I realized that every day that I woke up, there were things that were inundating me in my life, whether it be weather, right? We get tons and tons of rain and it's gloomy and you go 35 days without ever seeing the sun. Seasonal affective disorder never bothered me until I had to stay home from touring. And I realized, wow, I yearn for some kind of vitamin D. And I also wasn't talking to people. So I need that communication. So I was fortunate, man, that I found that this friend of mine got this retreat in Santa Fe where she does writing retreats. And she would take writers that had writer's block or they wanted inspiration or find ways to draw some sort of themselves out. And she brings them up in the mountains outside of Santa Fe. And I have a web company and a web design business. She said, I want you to build my website, but I want you to understand what that energy of this place is. So
yeah.
come out and visit. And I got there and I got goosebumps, man. I mean, it was like,
On my list, never been.
so that's where I moved, man. She had a little casita built onto this house. I moved here a month ago. I go up every day, right outside the house. I walk out my gate up the mountain and quarter mile up the mountain. I get a 360-degree view of the valleys and I hear nothing. It's
That's peace.
it's
Peace.
silent. So I started to also during the pandemic 60 seconds of serenity with my dog, and I go out and I started streaming it live on Facebook for nobody else. People were laughing because they're like, "You really love seeing yourself every day on social media."
Oh, it's habit. It's habit, and it's holding yourself accountable.
Accountability was one thing, and thank goodness, if there's anything good about the Zuckerberg algorithm, is that 20 or 365 days later, when you get that notice,
Oh,
this
the
is where you
memory.
go. Yeah. So I come back and I go, oh, where were my 60 seconds on November 7th last year? And my dog and I were out in the woods. And I watched him, my little pug. He didn't care about what happened yesterday. He didn't care what somebody voted for. He is present. He's smelling squirrels. He's looking around. He's enjoying today. Being present was something I was never able to do, man. I hung out so much to the past. And so that's my practice, right? Is to
I have
get,
a lot of FOMO. I struggle with FOMO.
yeah, people do, right? When you look at people's lives on social media, because of course,
Well, not even just that, but yeah, I get that.
I don't post, that, oh man, it was tough to make that bill this month, or I got hit with something I wasn't expecting to, or whatever. Yeah, I'm not, some people will post like their food poisoning and all the aftermath that goes along with that. For the most part, I try to promote, the positive in my environment. A lot of people as influencers will post, this is how great my life is. It's
Yeah.
perfect, right? And nobody's life is perfect, right? We know that. But I will say, I'm not taking for granted the sunset that I got last night, or the incredible view that I got of the stars, or how good it feels to not hear anything when I go out in my yard. And I got tired of hearing chaos and drama. And I'm on the road a lot where there's chaos and there's drama. And so I'll find ways to channel that. Playing drums for me, man, I'm blessed, bro, because when I get on stage, everything goes away.
Do something like that I mean, I'm in it now, but not in like the same way. I'm so passionate about the stuff I do in events, and
Yeah.
there's other stuff that, it's not, but to be able to do that, it's still work.
Yeah.
But man, when you're happy at work, and when work is the majority of, and work is what you need to allow you to do everything else that you love to do, it's something else. Have you been to Meow Wolf?
Yeah, I just posted a picture. I've not been inside. I was out there. The If you don't have reservations long ahead of time, you're not getting in. It's
Yeah.
so
We had
packed.
Vince, one of the founders, on, and it's such a, I mean, yeah, talk about interpretation about art.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was in the parking lot on Friday or Saturday at sunset because
Well, let
they've.
me ask him what, we'll see if we can't get you in there.
Oh yeah, well, I actually my landlord here, she was talking about going this afternoon. I may go this afternoon. So as a new Mexican resident, I get a $10 discount. So
There you go.
yeah.
Beautiful. I love it. Just a couple rapid sort of questions, and then I know we went long here. What does 2023 look like for A Flock of Seagulls?
Got a bunch of shows, man. I mentioned doing Lost 80s Live for the last 4 years as headlining. This year, we're doing something different. We're going back over to Europe. We start in Europe August. We're doing a big festival in Belgium, and then that runs over into Scotland, England. Tour dates every day for a couple weeks. We've got Wednesday, I leave for Park City, Utah. We've got a 4-day residency there. About a dozen dates around the South with this incredible Depeche Mode tribute called Strange Love that we're doing shows with. And they're in Australia right now. They're so good. And watching them actually reminds me a lot of seeing Depeche Mode live. It's uncanny.
I've seen them. They're great.
Yeah, they are good, man. So yeah, we're doing a bunch of shows with them with Live Nation and House of Blues. So I don't know the number of shows, but we played a lot last year. I think between 75 and 100 shows, and we'll probably be good, a good 50 to 75 shows this year too. So it'll be a good busy year.
Give
Keeps getting
me give me a favorite venue you've played and a place you've never played that you would love to.
absolutely. We tour. One of the smaller places on tour is the Mountain Winery in Saratoga, California. It used to be Paul Masson Winery. It looks like a castle, beautiful outdoor venue. It's stunning. If you've not been, it's gorgeous. It overlooks Cupertino, home of Apple computers, and but you're up in the vineyards, and so that's a fun one. It's my favorite spot on the tour of year. Biggest show that we'd ever played was in Quebec City with Corey Hart and Level 42 just before the pandemic. There were 90,000 people there. It was insane inside the fortress of the castle there at the FEQ festival in Quebec City. Um, and that was pretty spectacular experience, just not because of the amount of people, but the whole vibe of this historic area. And in the country, there are a few spots that I've seen music that I want to see. So my bucket list for sure, got to play Red Rocks. You know, the singer for the band has played there several times.
I've never been. I got to get there next year.
It's awesome. I mentioned Scorpions. That was my first. I saw Scorps there in 1988. So Red Rocks for one. I'd love to play Hollywood Bowl. We do the Greek Theater every year, and I love it. But Hollywood Bowl is another historic one that I want to hit. Madison Square Gardens, man. You know,
Yeah.
got to play the
I grew up in New Jersey, so that's the Mecca, right?
right. Yeah.
What's favorite one-hit wonder?
Of any band,
Any kind.
Yeah.
Mine is Tub Thumping.
Really? Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Chumbawamba. Yeah. No, most people. There's a time where I said that "Wouldn't It Be Good" from Nick Kershaw was it, because it was a great '80s song that really never blew up really big. When I hear it, it just it brings me back to being a starry-eyed 13, 14-year-old. So I'll use that one today.
I want to do a one-hit wonder tour. I actually reached out to Chumbawamba and some other bands to do it. It's hard to make happen because it's expensive to fly people in
It is.
for one song, but let them play others. I don't know. I'm gonna make that happen sometime in my life.
Yeah, you'd be good with it.
I appreciate the time here. It's been such a great conversation. We'll have to have you on with like a panel and just talk music.
Sure.
You get the panel and we'll do it next year.
All right.
Once we reset with the Wolff Den. But check out all the information, kevinrankin.com. You can find more about Kevin, accesskevin.com about All Access Live, 251 episodes of great conversations like this, music centric. And you can find him on Instagram and all over everywhere too. But the Instagram is Kevin Metal. Spelled a little differently. It's down here. We're going to let you go with the same question everybody gets. Okay. You can spend a day with anybody in the world. They have to be alive, and you can't be related to them. Who would you choose, and what would you guys do?
Barack Obama.
Obama.
Yeah, Obama.
So he was and I got to go back once I get he's the number one answer. It's not like, maybe probably a handful, 10 out of 250. He was my number two. So if I would go, Jason Bateman would be my third answer. Obama would be two. Tim Tebow would be my number one. And it's very close.
Yeah.
I would love to be Obama. I'd love to shoot some hoops, play some golf, and talk.
Yeah, totally.
What would you do?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I would love to have him smoke me on the basketball court, but I think because yeah, you could. Yeah. I couldn't, but even if I could, I wouldn't on purpose. No, I think he was a master of being bringing people together. I think I don't care who you vote for. When you look at political environments right now, and on both sides, man, there's just so much name calling, and the amount of accountability, lack of accountability I see in politicians makes me sad. I didn't like what I saw politics do to him, but long before he became president, I read his book Dreams of My Father when he was just a senator in Chicago. And I saw that he's a dude who legitimately wanted to make change for people that deserved it. I felt like I had hoped that big business and lobbyists were not going to be able to get through to him. I was hopeful that the amount of political, challenges between partisan politics, I was hoping that it wasn't going to limit.
It's a thankless job, isn't it?
It is the worst, man. I mean, you could never, ever pay me enough or convince me enough to want to be in that position. But interviews that I've seen with him afterward, where he can be open and honest, he could talk about the sacrifices that he made as a president, but he never.
That's what you want as a guest, to be that's why I put Tebow like that, to be able to have an honest conversation. When you're with someone for 24 hours, it's bound to get there.
Yeah. I mean, tell me where you feel like you made bad decisions or you were wrong, and what you learned from it, and what helped you grow, and who influenced you to grow. That guy, for number one, the ultimate in a family person. You know, I looked at the respect and reverence that he had for his wife was really admirable, and his kids meant everything to him. His two daughters, I felt like, yeah, man, he did his best to limit their, like how the shadiness in politics could affect them. Of course, it's going to affect them in all sorts of ways. But he wanted to get out of politics so that he could be a better dad and be a better husband. And
But he still can influence. I
yeah,
don't apologize for anything. I'm gonna vote tomorrow elections. I'm gonna vote Democrat. That's how I
yeah,
feel. And
me
with
too.
Obama, and at the end of the day, I want someone who is going to put who genuinely wants to do good, because you can't
Yeah,
please everything.
yeah,
And it's hard to know if we're going to get that, but that's what I aim for. We got the I Voted Festival tomorrow. There's great
yeah,
music on. I'd love to get A Flock of Seagulls. I'll connect you guys for the next election, the next I
yeah.
Voted Festival. It's a great day of music, great night of music. I lied about the last question because I forgot. We talked about documentaries yesterday. The premise of that: you're not a singer, you don't write music, right?
No,
Yeah. If you could go back and pick any song in the history of the world and you wrote it, what would it be?
imagine John Lennon.
Imagine.
Yeah.
That's a great choice too. Great. Well, look, appreciate it. Hopefully get to see you play. I know you don't come down to Florida, but we'll
Oh yeah,
find.
we'll be there. We're there a lot, man. Mike's got another house there. We'll be back in
You
Florida.
let me know. I'm going to come to the show and demand some drumsticks from you,
Yeah, you got it, buddy.
and then
You
I'm
got
going to call you an asshole if you don't give them to me.
Yeah, if I don't send you Christmas money, right?
Well, I'm Jewish, so send me Hanukkah money. But
Yeah, you get a dreidel, my friend.
Radel. Rita was here for the whole show. We love the support. Obviously, a friend of yours, and great stuff that you're doing. I love '80s. The fact that you guys can still play these songs and enough people want to hear it. It's just a testament. '80s music and movies, the best that there is.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. You know, I know that you're oftentimes a sports guy too, and I'll tell you, if Rita's still there, my team, Seattle Seahawks, are going to be playing in Germany in Munich this
Yeah,
weekend,
that's
playing
awesome,
against the
right?
Buccaneers. Yeah, so Rita, if you get a chance, go down and root for my team, and tell Geno Smith he's kicking ass, and I love my rookies. They're rocking. They're on a roll, and hopefully they beat the
My,
crap.
my team, the Broncos. We got this is the first collectible I ever got. Is my little Brian. We got Russell right now, and we're struggling. You guys got a lot. You got a quarterback that can play.
How's that? How's that an implant with the Seahawk logo? Can I,
Uh,
can I
that
show
is
that?
awesome.
Yeah, I shouldn't show off my teeth, but I'm old enough that I have an implant.
No,
Uh,
I have an implant too, but I can't take it out. It's stuck in there.
if you don't have an Elway, implant, then you're not in shape.
I got LA pins and stuff when I was at the Hall of Fame this summer. Check out all the information. Really appreciate doing great things.
Thank you,
Check
man.
out the podcast. Some really great guests. I Voted Festival tomorrow. If you're still listening,
Do it.
go out and vote. I don't care who you vote for. I mean, I do care who you vote for, but whoever you're going to vote for, go and get out and vote tomorrow, or don't complain. I don't want to see any complaints from anyone. Check out I Voted Festival. Great music all day tomorrow, and have a great day. Hopefully you're inspired to do some good after this conversation.
Vote for decency. Can we do that?
No, we don't know what decency is anymore. We don't know what right and wrong is anymore.
I know what I
And
believe.
you and I know it.
Yeah, I think I know what I believe it to be.
Yeah,
So
you and I know what we believe it to be.
do,
But
do some critical thinking out there. That's what I want people to do,
man,
right? If you're going to vote, be a critical thinker. Don't
I
vote
think
for.
the critical thinking is what got Kanye and Kyrie in trouble.
I don't think they did critical. I don't think it was critical thinking. I really don't. And honestly, I think that that whole thing is getting Kyrie into trouble because he wasn't a critical thinker. He just being
He
forced.
wants to be a critical thinker. Maybe he wants to sound like he's doing critical thinking.
Exactly. Yeah, but even the way that it's being dealt with right now, I feel like is really unfortunate because like the amount of the reparations that he's supposed to do. Like if he totally doesn't believe it and you're going to try and force him to act a certain way, dude, he already screwed
I
his.
agree with that, but the problem is if you're on Twitter, the
Yeah.
amount of people who are blindly defending him,
Yeah.
that's the biggest problem with what
Totally.
Kyrie did.
Because they're not,
Who cares
they're
what Kyrie thinks? I
they're
don't
not,
care what Kyrie thinks.
they're totally not being critical thinkers, man. Like that's the thing. To think critically and you're probably not going to be in the position that he's in, right? If you surround yourself with decency, man. You're not just you won't be an asshole, you know. That's that thing, right? So Kyrie, you're not listening to me, nor is Kanye, but uh, nor is Elon. But somebody, you know, just think decent, be good humans, man. That's it.
No, it's nuts. Man, if I showed you some of the comments, I'll have to send you some of these comments offline. But we'll talk again soon. It's been great.
Yeah, you
I
too,
love
man.
what you're doing. A
Thank you,
great
brother.
conversation about music. I could talk music all day, every day.
That's
If not, and it's great that we were able to have it.
rock and roll, man. Well,
All right.
good job on the Wolf Den, man. And thanks to people that were watching.
Yeah. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right, peace.